Hello and welcome to the CEC for Life podcast. My name is Christian McGrew and I'm the Director of Outreach for CEC for Life. A little bit of history about our organization. We are the Charismatic Episcopal Church for Life. So the Charismatic Episcopal Church is our denomination, and we're the pro-life organization for our denomination. And if you want to know more about how that started and everything, our first podcast, we kind of go deep into that. One thing that I want to mention real quick before we go on to the rest of the podcast is that just in case it's the only podcast that you watch of us, Amendment 4 in Florida is very important that you vote no on. And again, we did go into great detail about that last podcast. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go on with the podcast now. So to my left is Savannah O'Brien, who is on our podcast team. And then our first special guest is Lydia Taylor. And so please tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got into the pro-life movement.
Yeah, so my name is Lydia. Like he said, I'm a spokesperson for Students for Life of America, and I also do social media for them. My job title keeps changing, but I have the incredible opportunity to run social media. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I started touring the country talking about abortion at college campuses where clearly it needs to be heard the most, because this past semester has been crazy. I've had people throw bloody baby dolls at it. I'm like, okay, this is clearly the mission field right here on college campuses. So that's kind of an overview of what I do, but I got involved with Students for Life, not as an employee, but as a student back when I was a senior in high school, actually. I got really passionate about the pro-life movement because pro-choicers would tell me that my foster sister would be better off aborted, and because she was a foster kid, and I was like, that's disgusting. And so I became really passionate, and God really called me into the pro-life movement. And so getting into college, I thought it would be easy. Going to a Christian college was very wrong. I was stalked, harassed, threatened, but God really worked through it and allowed so many opportunities and outreach to happen through that. And so I started working for Students for Life after being mentored by Kristen Hawkins, who is the president of Students for Life. She's awesome. And so now I work with her. I help her with her social media, and I run the Students for Life social medias, and I now do some speaking of my own. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have Lydia on, and let's kind of get into it. So I know, like you just mentioned, that you do a lot of social media and a lot of the Students for Life social media and a lot of your own. And how does the abortion industry really target not only you and your personal experiences and backlash that you've received, and you've talked about some of it already, but also just Gen Z in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think we think of Gen Z as like the crazy generation. Like they're the ones doing those crazy protests on college campuses. And I'm like, I love your passion, but maybe let's redirect it towards not any violence and also towards good things like pro-life work. And so I've definitely dealt with a lot of struggles. I mean, on my college campus, I have students that want to get involved with our club over the past 2 years and me leading it, and they would say that they were too afraid to get involved because they were scared of how they'd be treated, because they had seen me get death threats slid under the door of my dorm. I mean, it's rough. College campuses are probably one of the roughest places for pro-lifers, because obviously the abortion industry is targeting that demographic, because that's the demographic that's getting abortions. We're told on college campuses that women can't be a mom and graduate or be equal to men as a mom. I'm like, that's crazy. That's just ridiculous. And doesn't sound like feminism at all to me. And so I have really dealt with a lot of struggles with Gen Z on college campuses and some backlash there, but I've also seen like a ton of just like improvements and victories at my college campus. I had a bit of a crazy story. This was just my freshman year, so several years ago at Campbell. I realized that there were no openly accessible pregnancy resources, and that students on my campus were essentially either being forced to drop out or abort the baby, which I thought was unacceptable at a Christian college. And so I wrote up a resolution as the student government vice president to make pregnancy resources openly accessible. I assumed, everyone will support this, it'll be great, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, everyone wants to empower women. And I was so wrong. It was vetoed, and I was told it wouldn't pass unless abortion was on it, which was absolutely insane. And so I ended up praying about it, and it kept getting vetoed. And finally, it came down to my last attempt to pass it before Congress, and the night before, I was walking back to my dorm late at night, and I was approached by a young woman, as I'd literally been praying about how in the world am I going to past this, a young woman, a stranger, approaches me who I didn't know who she was. She goes, "Are you the pro-life girl?" And I'm a little scared. I'm like, "Whoa." She gets really quiet, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a pro-life girl." She's like, "I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. I think I need an abortion because I can't find any help, and I've heard about you and I'm coming to you as a last resort." And I'm like freaking out now. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my next words could mean life or death for her preborn child." And so I told her the truth that no, this university is not providing adequate resources, and the abortion industry is targeting Gen Z with messaging like this, but the pro-life movement can help. My church can help. We can help you. And I connected her with pregnancy resources, and she was just overjoyed and thrilled to see that there was real help. And the next day before Congress, I got to share her story, and I told them that if they failed to pass my resolution, that they would be neglecting women just like that. And no one could argue with that. And so it became the first pro-life resolution passed at my Christian university, which you would think at a Christian university it wouldn't be the first, but it was. And so we've seen amazing victories like that, despite all the backlash with Gen Z, and it's really been incredible to see that.
Well, that's an awesome story. I mean, it's really God that happened the day before, and
really,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, I was in Students for Life when I was just when I graduated last year, but when I was in school. But I've definitely not had any death threats. But you definitely have people who are like, I don't want to be involved. Like, I'm pro-life, but I don't want to be involved because I'm nervous about being outspokenly pro-life, and it is a big issue because we already don't have a lot of people on college campuses that are pro-life in the first place, and so the fact that the ones who are pro-life are not going to even speak up for the preborn is another big issue. So
absolutely,
and especially college students, they're so much more susceptible to all of this because they're much more impressionable too to all of the messaging that's being targeted to them.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
But yeah, I mean, I think, so how do you think we can get them to understand that they don't have to kind of, I won't say like cower, but they don't have to not be confident in being able to speak what they know to be true?
I think one of the biggest issues is that obviously the pro-life movement, we're kind and loving, and the other side is very in your face and crazy. And like, yes, we should be kind and loving, but some people think that being loving is just being silent and kind of this middle ground, and I'm like, no, we need to be firm. Like, if Jesus was here, he would be flipping tables of the abortion industry. He would not be okay with what's happening down in our communities, where women are being coerced. We know a majority of women who have abortions are feeling pressured into them. He would not be okay with how Planned Parenthood is selling babies' bodies. It's horrific. And so I think that's a huge thing. Like, we need to be more firm, and it makes me very sad that there's so many churches that are just silent about it and just kind of let Gen Z hear what society says about abortion. They just assume, if they're in church, they'll figure out the right thing to believe about abortion. And it's not true. I mean, Gen Z is on social media. We're known as the social media generation. We're all on TikTok. And obviously all we see on there is complete misinformation, and so our brains are being filled. So I think that one of the biggest things we can do to reach Gen Z is to really be more bold, but also to target them on social media. I know everyone hates social media. They're like, it's awful, it's evil. And I'm like, it can be, not gonna lie. Like, that's where I get my death threats every day. But at the same time, like, it is such a powerful tool. And I mean, I get to see every day as I'm running social media accounts, like, how it's really impacting lives. Like, I posted videos where people will comment and say, I was pro-choice and this one video completely changed my mind. And I have people coming up to me being like, I know you on TikTok and I had no idea all these facts about abortion. I'm like, yeah, I know, because it's all misinformation out there. And so we really need to go where Gen Z is, and that is TikTok, Instagram, not as much Facebook. That's maybe some older generations, no good to them. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things also, is not being afraid to be bold, because the other side is so loud on the abortion issue, and we really need to match that energy.
It's so, like, what you're saying is so true too, like with churches that just ignore this issue entirely, because I mean, what your kid goes to church for an hour on Sunday, one day a week, how much time are they spending on social media? There's being inundated with all of this propaganda, and so we have to be more forceful, and we have to actually protect these pastors and stuff, to protect their flock, and especially the youngest of them. It's so important.
Yeah, for sure. especially because like there's so many women, like we know like statistically a lot of women who are getting abortions have been to church within the month that they got their abortion. And so if pastors were just bold enough to talk about abortion and say, hey, there's real help for you, abortion is not the empowering choice you think it is, and ending the life of your child is not this great female empowering women's choice, bodily autonomy, however they like to cover on what abortion is. There would be such a difference in our communities if churches would just be more bold and passionate, and obviously Christian colleges too, that would also be helpful, but we'll get there when we get there. I totally agree, like we would make such an impact if we were just a little louder on abortion.
Definitely.
I think so too.
I mean, such a difference would be made if we were actually like rallying around these women instead of just forcing them into abortions or ignoring the issue altogether, which is honestly worse.
Well, that's kind of what the church, well, not all churches, some churches are ignoring
a lot of
the issue altogether, and that doesn't send a signal to the women in their own congregation that are dealing with, being pregnant and having unplanned pregnancies.
They're scared of like scaring people away, but I'm like, if you'll actually encourage people when they see that you're not afraid to just speak the truth and actually, tell the message that needs to be heard.
That is one of the biggest issues, I think, with the abortion issue in America, is that the churches, especially from 50 years ago, we were much more of a Christian nation back then, and if the churches took a stand against abortion, I think things would have played out differently. I read a book, I forgot the name of it, but it was a few years ago, and it was about how, or part of it was about how there were so many denominations, and I don't remember all of them, but there were so many denominations that actually came out like not opposing, like had public statements that they were not opposing Roe versus Wade when it came out. And that was just like, I was like, is this even real? Like, I know some people ignore it, but some churches actually support it, and I wouldn't actually say that they're churches.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Like, if your church supports abortion, go find a new one, right?
Exactly,
Kind of lose that title.
It's that's like one of the things that angers me the most, I think, is like when a church is supporting abortion, I'm like, that's not just wrong, you're misleading so many people as to what Christianity is. Like the Bible is very, people are like, oh, the Bible doesn't talk about abortion. I'm like, God chose the first person to rejoice at the news of Jesus. It was a preborn child, John the Baptist.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but John the Baptist leapt for joy and was filled with the Holy Spirit. Clumps of cells don't leap for joy and get filled with the Holy Spirit in the womb. And so I think it's so obvious, and anyone that says otherwise is just, that hasn't read their Bible, to be completely honest. That's just how it is.
It really is.
No, I mean, I've spoken with a few different pastors on this too, and they'll tell me like, we don't really have that much in the Bible. There's not really many places that talk directly about abortion, so we can't really speak on it. And I'm like, there's so many places to go to, and also just as a Christian person, that your conviction the Holy Spirit should convict you that this is obviously wrong. And,
and I mean, it's clear like the writers like in the Bible like knew it was a life, like talked about, thank God that they didn't die in the womb, like they knew it was a life, and they didn't even have ultrasounds or anything like that. Now we have a whole window into the womb that they never even had, and it's like how are people seeing what a baby looks like in the womb and thinking, oh, that's just a parasite? I'm like, what are you seeing the same thing as me?
Exactly.
What? It's crazy.
They see what they want to see.
It is unbelievable because especially in the last I'll say decade or actually probably more than that, a couple decades, we've had so much more technology to see what the baby in the womb actually looks like, and that we knew before that was a human child, and their life was sacred. But now even people who are not Christian can, like, beyond the shadow of a doubt, see that
it's like confirmation.
It's a confirmation for that. It should be, but so a lot of them just like say, "Oh well, yeah, it's a human child, but it's okay to still murder them," which is terrible.
It's becoming a more common thing. I get this argument all the time that it's a human being, because at the end of the day you can't deny it. Like 96% of biologists agree it's a life at conception. So they have now come up with this new argument that it's a baby, but because it's using the mother's body, it's okay to kill it. And I'm like, okay, is it okay for a mom to kill her newborn then for using her body for breast milk? And they're like, well, but then it's born, and I'm like, so it has nothing to do with the fact that it's using her body, and everything to do with the fact that you don't think it's a human being. And that it's a bunch of arguments that are just so ridiculous, and all attempt to justify killing children, and they accuse us of forcing our religion on them. I'm like, yes, Christians are called to be pro-life, but you do not have to follow God to know that killing babies is wrong. Like it is, like that's why the primary thing I use now is science. Like yes, the Bible's pro-life, but like no one can argue it with the biology textbooks. Like I literally went through my university library before I did an abortion debate last fall, and I tried to find a single biology textbook that said anything remotely pro-choice or said anything other than life begins in conception. Could find zero. It doesn't exist. It's undeniable, and they're just trying to make random arguments that make no sense to justify abortion, and it's concerning.
It is very concerning.
I mean, I think as we've seen, like the pro-life movement get stronger and stronger, and you know, our arguments are just becoming even more firm. Like, we've seen the pro-abortion side just go further and further to the extreme too, because they are so hard pressed. Like they're never going to move from where their position is at, and so even you know, no matter what we present to them, whether it's a religious argument or a scientific argument, they're still just going to stick with what they'll still acknowledge that, you know, it's human life, but they'll still say that it's okay to kill them.
I feel like it's their arguments are still more extreme. They keep getting more extreme, but their arguments have not gotten better. They've actually gotten worse. I mean, not that any of them were okay in the first place, but
less
now
coherent.
they're exactly.
And I mean, I had a pro-choice service a couple years ago. Back when I was a little newer to apologetics, and I'd never expected this to happen. I was at a pro-abortion protest. I actually ended up going to more of those than I did pro-life ones to go crash them. And I was talking to a pro-choice woman who had her 3-year-old child with her, and she was talking about why she's pro-choice and justifying how it's not a child in the womb, or that she should be able to kill it or whatever. And I was like, well, ma'am, why you wouldn't support being able to kill like your 3-year-old child right here, right? She's like, yes, I would. And I'm like,
really?
Oh my gosh,
shocked. Like I'm like,
crazy.
And it was sad because her little boy was like almost old enough and was kind of just looking at. I was like, oh my gosh, this is how crazy our society's gotten. That we're so blinded by this idea of women's choice. We supported women's choice. I'm like, well, women's choice to do what? Anything, any choice. I'm like, do you know what that means? Like, do you really know what that means? And they've been so brainwashed by it, because the pro-abortion movement, as awful as they are, they do a really good job at using misleading rhetoric to mislead people. Like I was once misled. I grew up with very pro-life parents who never thought that they would have to talk to me about abortion. And in high school, like people were like, oh, it's just about women's choices, some women need them, yada. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. And then people started talking about it, and I learned more, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking about women's choices, and we're actually talking about a woman's choice to kill her child, and that should never be a choice. And it's just very misleading, and that's what I do on my speaking tours. I go through and debunk all of the bodily autonomy, reproductive freedom. Like, what does that actually mean? And it's they're trying to hide what abortion is, because the word abortion isn't popular, because it's associated with what abortion really is.
They wouldn't need all the euphemisms if they could actually face up to what it was. I know at the March for Life, like Father Frank Pavone spoke about, you know, describe what you defend. That's, you know, that was his main point of his speech, was have them actually describe what it is that they are defending and what, you know, what they support.
Absolutely.
They can't do it.
I mean, like, one of the most compelling pro-life arguments isn't even the argument, it's just showing them what happens in an abortion procedure. Like people are absolutely like have no idea. They really think that it's just a medical procedure to end a clump of cells. Because they, like, when Planned Parenthood on their abortion procedure website, they talk about removing a pregnancy. They don't even call it like a baby, not even a fetus, not even an embryo. They just call it the pregnancy. Products of conception sometimes even. It's very it's like, you know it's wrong. Like deep down they know what it is. And I mean, it's because when they're ending the child's life, they have to put all the baby's body parts back together to make sure it's been completed. And it's just ridiculous how much they're trying to hide. When we see Joe Biden go up and talk about why he supports abortion, he never uses the word abortion. Most of the time it's reproductive freedom, women's choices, female empowerment. He's never going to go up there and say, here is why a preborn child isn't a human being. No, he completely takes the preborn child out of the picture, because they're trying to mislead people. And so what abortion is, sometimes they just call it healthcare, women's healthcare, and I'm like, what are we talking about? No, not healthcare, healthcare at all. So I think that's one of the other big things we can do, is like really like call them out on that misleading rhetoric and those misleading phrases they're using to hide what abortion really is.
Language is so important, you know, and like we have to, that's, you know, what's so hard about even coming to the same playing field as the opposite side. It's like they're not even using the same language as we are. Like their words mean something totally different than what is the reality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everybody uses it that is on that side. Yes, Planned Parenthood and the politicians like on the left, but also people that are very that are very important to a lot of the younger Gen Zers who are like celebrities and actors and musical artists, and I think that also has like a big effect on whenever every single person that is in like mainstream Hollywood is supporting abortion the same way that Planned Parenthood is, then that really does have an effect, I think, on our younger people who are looking up to those people. And
yeah, we saw that at like Olivia Rodrigo's concert, back in March.
Oh my gosh.
Handing out.
And they were
Plan
handing out
B.
stuff. Yeah.
Wait, did you go?
No.
Okay, I was
gosh.
like, did you get some pictures? I did a whole
Taylor
video.
Swift maybe, but not Olivia.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That was
gosh.
insane. Like,
Yeah.
and it was like they were handing out Plan B to kids even.
I know.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
insane.
No, I went to like a few weeks after that. I was at the Supreme Court and I did a whole video. They were handing out Plan B at the Supreme Court, and I'm like, how do you feel about the fact that Olivia Rodrigo was handing out Plan B? And they're like, yeah, we love it. Everyone deserves Plan B.
Yeah.
What in the world? This
Yeah.
is crazy. Like,
Right.
oh my gosh, what in the, like, this shouldn't even be like pro-life, pro-choice.
Yeah.
Kids should not be having sex. This
Right.
is disgusting.
Right.
It's so wrong. And like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. But sometimes I'm like, this is God reminding me that I am on the side of truth.
Yeah,
and on
Exactly.
exactly.
the right
exactly.
side, because oh my gosh, how
Yeah.
can anyone think that's okay?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's become a common perspective, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
we're fighting against it. But yeah.
Yeah.
No, Olivia Rodrigo will not
No.
be going to any
Yeah, no.
concerts at all.
Definitely
No,
not.
I'm like, what concerts can I even go to at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, only Christian artists, because
Yeah.
the rest of them, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's so
oh my
true.
gosh, I've had some bad experience with. I even had I don't know if y'all know Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh,
he,
yeah.
he came
Not
out-
personally.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, he commented. So I had a video last September. A pro-abortion comedian made like this video bashing me. She was like, "This girl's entire personality is being pro-life," and I'm like, "Thank you."
Thank you. That's a compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like bashing me for it, and Dylan Mulvaney's in the comment section like, "Yeah."
Oh my
yeah."
gosh.
And I'm like, "What happened to no uterus, no opinion?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was
Right.
a thing. Like,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I don't know how.
Don't tell him he doesn't know what uterus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't tell him
Don't
that.
cry.
Like-
Well, have y'all seen the thing? Maybe we could pull it up, but first look at it. But that I know Kristen Hawkins just posted it recently about the guy
Yeah, the
who
guy who
wants to
wants-
have an
Wants to be
abortion.
the
Look at
first,
the first.
trans woman to
Yeah.
have an abortion.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
It's
I remember
insane.
finding that video
Yeah.
for the first time last year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do
I forgot
people
like what it
support this?
said
It's
exactly,
crazy.
but
I'll be able
yeah.
to find it. Let's see.
Yeah, it's going viral again right now, and I'm like,
It
as
happened a while
awful as
back,
it
yeah.
is, I'm kind of glad that we can all see the truth
Yeah,
about what's
like,
going on.
who would support
Yeah.
that actually?
I know.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I know. I found the original
unfortunately.
video like a year ago, and people in
Yeah.
the comments were like, "This is great. I love this. Women empowerment."
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
What in the world?
it's just crazy.
It is.
I can't believe that we've gone that far in society where
Yeah.
we can. That's like something that somebody says,
I know.
and
It's
that's posted on
I know.
social
and
media.
they like
on
don't have to think twice. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, they get more love for that than I'll ever get from.
Yeah.
I know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
They're like
it's
a hero.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But
I can see- yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. There's
That
just
looked
there's
like
no
somebody
limiting
who's going to
principle
have-
for these people.
No.
Like,
But
yeah.
I think that it's kind of goes back to what we said earlier about how the church didn't take a stand with abortion, and they definitely didn't take a stand with the other stuff, like that's both abortion and the LGBTQ whatever it is issue. But the church really should have taken a stand with abortion, I feel. Obviously some churches did, but a lot of churches didn't, and the problem is that we let the abortion issue go crazy, and now just in the last 20 years everything else has gone crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The slippery slope is very real.
It is very real.
Yeah.
It is very real. Yeah, I know. Like now they're supporting killing babies after birth. It's
Oh my gosh,
crazy.
yeah.
Like it's very sad, and like it worries me a lot. But I mean, trying to hold on to hope. I mean, we've obviously seen
Yeah.
a lot of crazy victories. I mean, like Roe's reversal.
Yeah.
Like,
That was
like
really good.
oh my gosh, we were
Amazing.
told like, oh, don't pretend like we're gonna overturn Roe. That's not possible.
Yeah.
And then I'm there like at the day. I was there when it happened.
Were
It was
you?
overturned.
That's awesome.
I spoke at the Supreme Court right before it happened. And I'm like in all the news interviews, I'm like crying. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So like God definitely is still working in all of this
Definitely.
Yes,
craziness,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
it's
big victory.
we've seen some victories, but obviously, especially now with Roe's reversal, we've seen more backlash than ever before. 'Cause
Yeah,
they're
we
like,
have.
how could you do this to us? How could you take our rights away? And I'm like, we're
Yeah.
not taking away your rights. We're giving rights to all human beings,
Yeah.
actually.
Right.
And so it definitely requires more courage than ever. And this time, I mean, we're seeing pregnancy centers being vandalized and bombed even.
Yeah.
I know in North Carolina where I'm at that happened, and it's like, oh my gosh, y'all say you're supporting women, but you're vandalizing the places that are helping women, and
Right.
it's sick. And they're so brainwashed by this idea that the abortion industry helps women. I did like an undercover investigation in late-term abortion and pregnancy resources, and I literally could not find any abortion facility that would give like pregnancy resources, like just basic ones to women. I mean, when they get an abortion, they don't even show the ultrasound usually. They don't want women to see the truth, and so they're not really empowering women's choices. They're trying to coerce women into abortions, and so they can profit off killing the child or selling the baby's body parts. And I mean, that's what happened with Tommy, who I've been mentoring. I know we talked about this, but his daughter was aborted at 20 weeks, and Clementine's mom, she was not able to make that choice. She was going through a lot, and they shoved papers in front of her, didn't really tell her what to do, and she signed to give the baby's body for fetal research and had no idea. And now they're trying to get the baby's body back, and they have no idea. And meanwhile, the abortion facility made money off of being able to sell that baby's body parts, and it's so sick and disgusting how little they care about women. I'm like, okay, we don't have to agree on like whether you support abortion or not, but you have to admit, like, Planned Parenthood is not supporting women. It is they are hurting women. They cover up sex trafficking. They cover up the women that they're killing. They're told, like, if something goes wrong, to avoid calling 911 because they don't want people to know that they're sending women to the abortion to the hospital with like terrible life-threatening situations or even killing women. It's very sad. So I think that's one of the biggest strategies we can use as well to combat it, is like showing women that we are actually the ones that are helping you. We outnumber abortion facilities by 10 times with our pregnancy center. And we're actually the ones that'll stand by you and really help you, and that abortion is only going to harm you further.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what, even if you're not going to get a pro-abortion person to, you know, come over to the pro-life side, at least you can get them to see that, you know, the abortion industry is really only about the bottom line. You can show that, at least, you know, there's so much evidence for that too. Even if, you know, even if they're not going to come all the way, like there's so much that you can show them that, you know, they really only care about the, you know, their dollar at the end of the day. And like Planned Parenthood's website just shows that too. And like when you go on there, I like can't even go on there sometimes because it's like you're just entrenched in lies. You know, it's insane. But I mean, the lies that they say about crisis pregnancy centers and stuff and everything. And, you know, they'll just try and push you away from that. And they just, the way that they lead kids into, you know, like ignoring their parents and keeping everything hidden from their parents and stuff. It's really insane.
Yeah, totally agree. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Planned Parenthood has never been, well, they've always been bad, but have you ever seen Maafa 21?
I don't think so.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
So it's MAAFA 21. It's on Live Action's YouTube, at least it used to be. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes. It's a documentary about how Margaret Sanger and the eugenics movement was also like, it was just, it's amazing. I couldn't even go over all the things it talks about, and I don't even remember all the things it talks about right now, but you should definitely watch it. It is, it goes into how from the beginning Planned Parenthood was a eugenics organization, and that even like Margaret Sanger and Hitler had mutual friends, and they were friends and stuff.
Oh yeah, Margaret
and,
Sanger spoke for the KKK. She's
Yeah.
terrible. Like I posted a TikTok, of course, the other day about how Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger were racist, and people in the comment sections were like, "What?" Like they don't say, because typically the pro-abortion movement is one that's like totally like Black Lives Matter, yada yada, and so like they don't know. They like freeze up. Like usually I have so many comments, and I only had like a few because they didn't even know how to like respond to that, because it's like. If you support abortion, then you're kind of supporting racism. I mean, like in major cities like New York, like a black baby is more likely to be aborted. It's so sick. And
it's
like
over 50%.
We have undercover footage of Planned Parenthood accepting donations towards specifically killing black babies.
I've seen that before. That's crazy.
It's so sick. And they're just like, usually the pro-abortion movement, the liberal side is so quick to call out racism. And
Yeah.
yet, until it comes to Planned Parenthood, then it's like, oh, they've changed. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
well, because they
they've
changed like the street sign. They didn't,
Yeah.
when during the whole like 2020 thing, didn't they like? Oh, they sorry, we removed the statue. Like, I forgot it was like one thing that they like did, but
Yeah.
it's like you haven't changed your history of
Right.
like I think it's a street sign or something that it was named like Margaret Sanger that they changed because
Oh,
of
yeah,
like
yeah,
racism
they
in
did.
2020 the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's nothing
Yeah.
compared to like still accepting donations for
I know.
killing black
I
children.
know.
80% of the
Right.
abortion clinics are in low-income communities,
Mm-hmm.
and it's insane.
Yeah, that's
But-
whatever they say about them changing. Like you're still doing the same thing. Like they're still targeting minority communities. I mean,
They are.
like at the Planned Parenthood here in Jacksonville. I mean, the majority of women are are black or Hispanic, and that's their mission is still the same, even if Margaret Sanger's not around anymore.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep, absolutely. It's very sad, very sad. They're
It is.
like they try to cover up. It's so sad though. They've posted stuff that I'm like, this is blatantly racist. Like they'll be like, oh, it's safer for a black woman to have an abortion than give her. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Who says that? Like,
I know.
how are they
Yeah.
just getting away with that?
Right.
That is so
Right.
It's
insane.
like that's how crazy our support for abortion
Yeah.
has gotten. That's just okay to say. Apparently, like
Yeah.
we should just be encouraging all black women to just abort all babies. Apparently,
Yeah.
according to Planned Parenthood,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
sick and
And
crazy.
it's the bigotry of low expectations too. I mean, you're just saying like, well, this black woman, or they're never going to be able to care for their child,
Right.
so they just have to get rid of it.
Yeah,
Like they're
like, I feel like there's a less extreme solution we can have than killing a baby.
Right.
I don't know about
Right.
y'all,
Yeah.
but I think I can think of some things like
Yeah.
we can really help. And that's the thing. People have no idea. Like they think we just hate women. They think that us pro-lifers just sit at home and be like, how can we harm
Yeah,
women today?
right.
No, I'm like, I feel like most of the pro-life movement is dominated by women. I mean, I'm glad you're here, but like we
Yes.
we need more pro-life men, like for real,
Yeah,
like big
definitely.
time. Because men think it's not like there's not my issue. I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
Oh my
it
gosh.
takes two to create a child. But yeah, it's like the pro-life movement, like most pro-life organizations are led by women. And like, I know all my male coworkers are like, we need more men. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, do they just think we hate or something? Like, I don't know. They're just so brainwashed, sadly. And it's really like, we really do care about women. Like, we're not just saying don't get abortions. We're saying we want to make abortion unthinkable. We want to actually help women so that they're never in the situation where they feel like they need an abortion, and where they feel loved and supported and get the help that they need to get out of whatever situation they're in. And yeah, I think it's very important to really push that against their narrative, because oh my gosh, they're crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think men feel so intimidated by the issue, and like we don't see so many pro-life men, because really it goes all the way back to like first wave feminism and the sexual revolution and stuff like that's where abortion really started happening too. The whole like my body, my choice, whatever, like bodily autonomy and all of this. And it came. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, and it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, even though abortion wasn't legal in the United States until 73, the sexual revolution was a big reason why that was even a possibility. And that was also Margaret Sanger had a big, the birth control and everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think that
That's
definitely
huge.
our hookup culture has
Oh, yeah.
contributed to rising abortion.
For sure.
100%.
Rates. It's really bad, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, if you don't want a child, just don't engage in activities that
Right.
can create a child. And I'm
that
like,
would be the easiest way.
it would be so like, problem solved.
Yeah.
But then people can't do what they want. And
I know,
that can't
I know.
be. That can't happen. Yeah.
We can't just. I'm like, you're not animals. You can
Right.
control yourselves. I
Yes.
promise.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, live action has, and like going back to just like people watching the videos and then immediately changing their minds when they have this, they'll show the video to people on the street and stuff. And I mean, within a minute or two, they'll completely change their mind on where they stand. And they were, I saw a live action video where they were going around asking people like, what percentage of abortions do you think happen within for married couples or non-married couples? And people were shocked to see that, obviously the majority is with unmarried couples, but I mean, it just goes to show, and like people were saying, well, because the interviewer was asking, do you think people should wait till marriage, to have sex? And they were like, well, it's up to every person. It's, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's their own personal decision. But then when you see that, the majority of abortions are happening in, for couples or for women who are unmarried, obviously people actually were acknowledging, the people that they were interviewing were acknowledging, it's better to wait till marriage, and, abortion's not a net positive thing for society.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on Planned Parenthood's website, you can go to their Learn section, and underneath there, if you click on abortion, it brings you to a section that says questions about parental consent. And when you click on that, so obviously like they're, aiming more towards kids under 18. And when you click on that, it leads you to a site that, or it has like a link to a website called Repro Legal Helpline, which basically will help kids under 18 who, even if in their state it's illegal to not notify or have parental consent, they'll give you a judicial bypass, and they show you how to walk through that process and stuff. And it's just insane how like they are literally making kids say like we're just not, they're trying to encourage kids to not notify their parents, or not not let their parents know that this is happening. And they'll even so they'll use the word like it brings you to, it'll show you like every state, and so basically the kid, like if you're on there, you can just click on your state and see what the laws are. And even if you have your state requires parental notification or consent, which the notification part is tricky too, and like that's what the Florida amendment that we're dealing with is the wording there is so misleading. But yeah, so they'll bring you to this Repro Legal Helpline, and basically like try and walk you through a whole process where you can just hide. If a kid is trying, if a young girl is trying to get an abortion, they'll just like bring her to all these resources to help her hide that from her parents or her guardians and stuff. So yeah, it's so crazy the way that and their whole website is really geared in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like totally like, even like especially with like sex trafficking and stuff. Like we've done undercover videos where we had a young woman go in and pose as a 13-year-old, like, my boyfriend, he's like 37, and they don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
They're just
right.
like, oh yeah, we'll help you get an abortion without your parents knowing, yada yada. I'm like, you do realize that's totally how sex traffickers are taking in little girls, getting them an abortion so they can continue to exploit them.
Just use
so
them,
it's horrific, and it's so sad, and like that's just what they're feeling. And I mean, they like even it was a while ago, I think it was about a year ago, but they accidentally handed out sex ABC cards to kids, like teaching kids how to do all these sex acts and stuff in like an elementary school. And they're like, it was an accident. Sorry, we meant to hand that to some other kid. I'm like, to the kids that are the next grade.
It's just for the kids' school.
It's like, oh my gosh, like it's so sick. I'm like, I didn't even know any of this stuff existed. Like this is a whole different level of just disgusting, and like it's just so evil, and they're targeting kids. And I mean that's how they continue to raise up generations of pro-abortion supporters. They're targeting the youngest generation, filling their minds with these lies and encouraging them to come in, because a lot of times they're taking the babies' bodies and selling them. And I mean that's what they're doing with young women. They're essentially shoving paperwork in front of them that said, oh, it's to help other babies, and they don't know that they're giving their baby's body to be sewn onto like labyrinths. It's terrible. It's disgusting. It's so inhumane, and I don't understand how people just can go their day-to-day lives and think that that's normal. It's not normal, and it's very sad how they're totally targeting kids. And it's so important to like educate people about what Planned Parenthood's agenda really is, because and now like they're churning out all of this like sex ed curriculum too, and trying to put it in public schools. And I mean, if you just see like Thomas Sowell talks about this too, where he'll say like before we had sex ed in schools, kids were actually graduating with their virginity at higher rates, and then after we introduced sex ed, like then you saw those rates decline, because kids aren't, when you introduce it to them like that, if they're not thinking about it, well now they are. And so, you just see, sex ed is a huge problem. I actually have a friend, Katie Rose is her name. She started an organization called Worth It, where they basically are reclaiming sex ed from Planned Parenthood, and they're going in and teaching like actual beneficial sex ed. Like, hey, here's a baby's development. Like, this is your worth. This is how your body is worth so much more than what a guy says he wants to use it for, yada yada. And so it's like so beneficial. Like we're addressing the root of the problem, which is people are hookup culture, are just doing whatever they want because they think it's how they're gonna fit in society. And I'm like, no, that's really not how you fit in. It's gonna leave you feeling broken. And so I totally agree that Planned Parenthood going into schools is totally a part of the problem. And even if they're not sexually active in high school, it's just going to teach them that it's okay, like later on in college they're going to go and then get an abortion. Like, Planned Parenthood, they were great in high school. I just go to them for that. so frustrating how
Yeah.
they've taken the narrative completely, and we definitely need to reclaim it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's so clear to see, like, you know, when you are encouraging things like hookup culture, I mean, it's obviously going to lead to things like abortion, because when you have unplanned pregnancies and you don't feel like you're in a stable situation, that's, you know, but that's where we see the majority of these abortions happening.
Yeah.
And whereas if we were encouraging, you know, we were encouraging marriage, we were encouraging, you know, a more virtuous lifestyle, like, we would be, but that's not what public school is there to do anymore, or really ever. But
I also think that back to the whole men needing to get involved, like that's a huge reason why women are having abortions. Obviously, we know like a lot of times boyfriends are the ones dropping them off, handing their credit cards to go. And a lot of, I mean, from personally working with women who are getting abortions or considering it, like usually they bring up how their boyfriend doesn't want to be a dad. And because men think, oh, it's a woman's choice, so it's not my problem. And I'm like, you helped create the situation.
You played a part here,
Like you can't just dump this, and I don't understand how people like find it empowering to say, oh, it's only a woman's choice. I'm like, that creates the ability for a man to just abandon women. And so I think that men need to understand that they are a part of the picture, and that's why Tommy's story with Clementine has been so impactful, because there's been all these guys coming forward being like, yeah, I actually wish I did have a say in what happens to any baby that I happen to create in the future. Like, I'm like, that's normal. Like, you don't have to feel like a woman hater by thinking or saying that. And, and I totally think that like if men were more protective and more pro-life, that we wouldn't have so high abortion rates, because we would have men that are actually being like, hey, I'm a dad, I've been a dad since the moment of conception, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to protect our kid. And definitely just, you know, marriage would be great. That would be great if we could just get married. And then there would be like people are, now that roles reversed, people talk about, well, anytime I'm going to have sex with a guy now, I'm going to get a binding contract to make sure he can't leave me. I'm like, there's a word to it. Thank you.
Wait, I think they do that at the courthouse.
I
don't know how, it might be a long drive.
I know.
That's crazy.
Wow, you guys really, I'm glad you came to this on your own. We've been trying to tell you this.
Maybe you just go so far to that side. You all come back around at some point.
It's so funny how they're like trying to protest this by like, I'm not having sex anymore.
Yes, like all these women are like,
thank you.
They're like, I'm going to be celibate now. I'm like, this is great. It's like backfiring on you guys.
It's so funny.
It's worked out for us in more ways than one. Like,
I know they think they're like getting us with that, and I'm like, keep it coming, keep it coming.
Right.
That's the kind of the goal.
So, it's hilarious.
That is crazy. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is, just like we did last time with the second Dune movie, we're going to talk about a fun movie, or a fun pro-life movie that you can watch that isn't necessarily like pro-life, but you can find a lot of pro-life themes, and even if they're not intentional. So.
Yeah, so I went to see Madam Web, which I know everyone hates, but I went in blind, didn't know anything about it, and I'm sitting there with my fiance like, gosh, this is so pro-life, because I'm trying to look up the exact term right now, but so there's a mom in the story. It starts off and she's pregnant, and we find out later in the story that her baby, which was Cassie, who's the main character, she was diagnosed with a severe form of myasthenia gravis, and was essentially told that the baby wouldn't survive. But the mom, instead of getting an abortion, was like, no, I'm going to fight for my baby, and ended up like dedicating the rest of her pregnancy to trying to find a cure. And it leads to a lot of supernatural stuff that I won't spoil. I won't spoil the movie. But the mom like ends up like basically like risking her life to save the baby, instead of doing what abortion does and sacrificing the baby for convenience. So I thought that was like, I was like watching this, it's like, whoa, that's great. How are the pro-choicers not like screaming at this right now? Because I was like, this is amazing. And like, yes, the movie was not your typical Marvel movie. It wasn't exactly the best overall. I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is like a great theme, and I love it. It was great. So that's the movie. So if you haven't seen it,
I know, I haven't seen it.
No, me neither.
We'll have to go see it because
you'll have to suffer through it just for the pro-life.
I will. I'll do it for the babies. But that is awesome. I really think, and I said this last time we did the last podcast, but that if we had, it doesn't even have to be like explicitly pro-life, like you know, unplanned or anything. If we have all these mainstream movies that have themes, pro-life themes that are like that, and like the one in June, then it will really change the way that everyone looks at life in the womb. And if we had that all these years instead of the opposite in Hollywood, then we would be in a different place. I really believe that the culture is, and like with entertainment and all that, is one of the biggest reasons why
For sure.
we are in the position we're in right now. And I think that is a way to reverse it, is to have more movies that have those kind of values in it.
I totally agree. It's sad to see. Like, I know last year, I know a lot of people don't agree about this, but I hated the Barbie movie. I was very excited about it because I grew up on Barbie, and then I was like the first few minutes have girls bashing their baby dolls because they're tired of pretending to be moms, and I'm like, is that a little pro-abortion thing? I don't know, but I was like, what am I watching right now? It was like, I hated it, and just making the pregnant Barbie was the weird Barbie, and I'm like, okay, I don't like this. And there were definitely some good moments where they did say like you can be a mom, but like overall I was like, this just feels very like reinforcing the subtle idea that being a mom is not cool and you have to abort your baby to be successful or be Barbie or whatever. So I totally agree that if movies were more pro-life, because that's what people are filling their brains with, social media, movies, pop culture, it would be so influential, and I totally agree. We need to get some more pro-life movies out there.
We do.
Yeah, we need to humanize the baby. They've been dehumanized for so many years at this point. Yeah, we need to rehumanize them.
I totally agree.
100%.
Okay, so some questions.
Yeah, so we have some questions from our audience. Our very big audience. And they have texted in some questions to us, and we are going to read them.
Okay, so Lydia, are you working on any big projects right now? Or doing anything
obviously
new?
elections are going up.
Yes.
So that's crazy. So we are working on targeting Gen Z for elections on social media. So that's a big thing we've been working on strategically. So we just launched our Almost Aborted campaign. So on Friday we have a billboard right now up in Times Square talking about all these stories of people who were almost abortive, survived an abortion, almost had an abortion, and then Tommy's story, who his daughter was aborted. And it's to spread awareness, how abortion has this negative impact on people, and how in situations of even rape or incest, those situations, the baby is still valuable, and we can actually help those women instead of pushing them to kill their child, because that solves absolutely nothing. And so we've been really targeting people specifically for elections to vote against extremism on the other side, which we see abortion being supported up until the moment of birth, which does happen. They're like, oh, that doesn't happen. I'm like, I have personally posed as a pregnant woman in the third trimester to call abortion facilities, and they're like, oh yeah, it'll be easy. We'll just inject the baby's heart. And I'm like, is the baby fully developed? They're like, yeah, we can still do it though. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insanity. So we definitely are trying to expose the extremism of the other side of pro-abortion politicians right now. That's a big thing. So we're really targeting Gen Z on social media, trying to push out a ton of content related to that to try and hopefully influence people in the right direction. But we'll see what happens. We're trying to be optimistic, but there is so much backlash from the other side. So it'll be interesting to see how, especially the presidential election, that one. I'm like, oh my gosh. Whew. I
throw
can't
in the
even
towel
without wanting to lose my mind. But
yeah,
for sure. That's our main project.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Awesome. Okay, and how would you respond to people who understand that the preborn child in the womb is alive and is a person, but that they care more about the bodily autonomy of the woman? Yeah,
so I think it is very dangerous to start assigning one human more value than the other. I mean, that's what led to human rights abuses throughout all of history. Obviously, slavery, slaves were labeled as less than a person, or half a person, 3/5 a person, and that's why slavery was a thing, is because anytime you're deeming that some humans are more valuable than others, that's where there's a huge issue. And I think that people just think that you have to pick one or the other when it comes to the woman and the child, that you and I'm like, no, you just see them equally. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm like, they're always like, but what if it's a life-threatening situation? I'm like, you can always try to save both. And that's the procedure they do. They induce labor, perform a C-section, and yes, that a baby may die in the process of that, but that is completely different than going in and intentionally dismembering, poisoning, vacuuming them. And instead, we can try to give them their best chance of life and perform medical care. And so I think that's really important. And also, it comes down to it. convenience of a mother over her body or killing a child. I'm like,
Right.
I think there's a pretty clear worse thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very dangerous to start assigning more value to different humans, and it's very dangerous, and it's leading down a slippery slope
Yeah,
of
exactly.
supporting abortion after birth. And I mean, I see women that genuinely think it's okay to kill their like teenagers if it's convenient to their
Right.
autonomy to be
Yeah.
able to live, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
they use this excuse
It's
like,
so
oh, I'm not financially able to have a baby right now. I'm like, well, if your teenager was financially expensive because they eat a lot of food, is it okay to kill them? They're like, skip
Yeah.
away. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
see, this is dangerous.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's all human beings should be equally valued and loved and supported, and that's how I would respond to that.
Yeah, that's a great point too about like the life of the mother also, because I think even that's hard for a lot of pro-life people on that. You know,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that will always get them, and I think it's really important to talk about the intentionality of what you're doing. You know, like if you're trying to save the life of the mother, you're not trying to kill the child.
Yeah.
That might
Yeah.
be a very unfortunate thing, you know, consequence of what you're doing, but if that's not what the goal of the procedure is, or what
Exactly.
you're doing. You know,
Yeah, they think that we're forcing women to die, and I'm like, name a single person in the U.S.
Yes.
a
Right.
single woman. They speak. There's
Yeah.
been no woman that has ever been forced to die in pregnancy.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like,
there
it
have been
just
women
doesn't
who die
exist.
from the abortion pill.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
And
I'm like,
abortion.
what about
Right, and
them?
abortion,
and
right,
other
yeah.
abortions.
Yeah,
but
they're pro women until it comes to all of the
Yeah.
thousands of women that have been killed by abortion. So
Right.
it's like it's ridiculous how they're trying to make up lies about this. I'm like, every single pro-life law in the United States allows treatment for life-threatening situations, and that treatment never ever has to involve directly and intentionally killing
Right.
a child.
Exactly.
In fact, abortion procedures take longer and are harder to do than just inducing
Yeah.
labor performing a C-section, because
Yeah.
there's poisoning the baby involved,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
dilating
Yeah.
this, and all this
Yeah.
different stuff.
And the
where-
aftermath is just
exactly.
just so
It's
gruesome.
it's I've talked to so many pro-life doctors. They're all like, I've never had to perform a direct abortion to save a woman's life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they've always been able to try to save both. And I mean, most life-threatening situations do happen after viability,
Yeah.
and so they usually can save both lives.
Right.
So there's this huge like misinformed idea that women are being forced to die and that you have to pick or choose one or the other. It's just
Yeah.
not true. It's
Yeah.
totally made up in efforts to try and get people to support abortion, and
Right.
it's totally false.
Yeah, and that's what they have to do. They have to fight in the extremes, you know, because
Yep.
they can't come to where we're at because they can't
Yep.
defend it. Yeah.
Even
Exactly.
in an extreme lie,
Right,
because it's
right.
because like that's the thing that's super misunderstood even within the pro-life movement, that abortion is never medically necessary.
Yeah.
And it's because they're conflating, like they call
They do
miscarriage.
call- they-
See, that's the hard thing, because
Yes,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
under their definition, yes, I guess we would allow abortion because
But
they
this-
call induction abortion.
They call
Yeah.
that's
I'm like,
not abortion. Yeah,
it's not.
Right.
They've changed the definition
And
of abortion
ectopic
several
pregnancy.
times. Yeah, exactly. They've changed the definition of abortion like several times in order to confuse people into
Yeah.
thinking that inductions and C-sections are abortion. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Right.
And so it's just very confusing and hurtful, because
Yeah.
I know women who have had a miscarriage and they're told that they
Yeah.
had an abortion. And
Right.
I'm like, no. And they're
That's
like coming to
insane,
me
yeah.
like, what about? And I'm like, you didn't do anything.
No,
No, this is
yeah.
so messed up, and I'm so
Yeah.
sorry that you
Right.
had to go through this.
Yeah.
And it's sad that they're trying to conflate the two, and it's totally inaccurate. So yeah, that's one of the harder ones to fight against, because it does take a while to
explain everything,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
hard to do that with somebody who's already not
Yeah.
on your side.
Yeah, and screaming at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw like a few years ago, Chrissy Teigen, John Legend's wife, she had a miscarriage, and she was on social media posting about it, and she was like grieving her child, and she gave him a name. I think she named him Jack, and she was talking about it as a miscarriage. And then you saw like a few months later, she was talking about it again and referring to her miscarriage as an abortion.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
heard about that.
Yeah,
It's very sad and just
Yeah.
confusing, especially like when it comes to elections. People think that they have to
Right.
vote to support abortion,
Right,
and
right.
or women are going to die everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not true
Yeah.
at all whatsoever. It's complete misinformation. That's what they were resorted to,
Right,
because
right.
deep
They have to
down they
learn
know that we're probably on the right side of things. Deep
Yeah,
down,
exactly.
I'm convinced they know deep down.
Exactly.
Maybe not, but I think so. I hold on to hope that maybe they know.
yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully so. I have hope too. But.
Well, so another question we have is there a pro-life argument that you found is the most effective when talking to pro-abortion people?
A pro-life argument. I mean, honestly, I just think, I mean, there's the strategical ones where you focus on like talking about how abortion hurts women. I mean, when we're talking to an abortion supporter or a woman who's considering abortion, we usually find most effective is to talk about how like abortion leads to increased rates of depression, suicide, abusing alcohol, and so on. And so I think that that's really effective. But I think in general, just like the pro-life argument I always come back to is it's very simple. Science says a human life begins in conception, and there's no justification for ending an innocent human life.
Right.
And like,
exactly.
The abortion issue is this huge, complex thing, and I'm like, it's really not that
Very
hard.
simple,
Like,
actually. Yeah.
it's wrong to kill innocent human beings. That's all it is. So, I mean, definitely using science, and like, obviously, I am a Christian, but I definitely do, especially when I'm talking to college students, because they are not going to listen to anything you say. If it comes to the Bible, they're like, you evil Christian. Those things, evil and Christian do not.
Right.
You
have to meet people where they're at. That's true.
Yeah. So I think that that's definitely the first baby step, is talking about the scientific standpoint and how abortion hurts women. It's really how you start to get them to kind of want to talk to you and be more open. But I think just in general, just being kind and being a kind voice, even when you're being screamed at, like that is so amazing and effective in changing minds. Like last fall, when I got over 20,000 death threats. I had people sending me a message saying that they became pro-life just because of how they saw me respond and how they've seen the pro-life movement respond in the face of hate. And so I think that even if you feel like you haven't changed someone's mind in a conversation, you did plant a seed just by being kind, just by showing them that we don't hate women like you think we do. Like every conversation I end with a pro-choicer, I never expect to change their mind. It's very rare, unfortunately, but I'm like, hey, can we at least realize that we do actually care? And they're like, yeah, you don't hate women like I thought you do. I'm like, oh great, I'm glad we can see that. So that's what I would probably say is the most effective when talking to pro-choicers.
I think that's so beautiful too, that you're using the scientific argument, but you're still, even if you're not going to invoke the Bible, you're still going to be able to use your Christianity in a way to fight against them, because they see they see you turn the other cheek.
They start to ask questions. I literally had someone become a Christian because they said, how can you be so kind to the people who are literally wishing you to get be killed, yada yada. I'm like, Jesus literally loved and died for the people that tortured and put him on the cross. Like that, and like I am not anywhere near to Jesus. Like I, at the bare minimum, I can love my haters, and so that's such like a powerful thing. And they're like, wow, it's like mind blowing to them. Like, whoa.
And it's because it's such a radical shift from what we're from what the culture and society is telling us
our
how to
culture's
live.
Like, go and bash your haters.
Karma. I'm like, karma.
We have gone down not a great path lately, but we have, I have hope that there are people like us who can change that culture. And I hope that, and I think that, we're doing it right now.
Baby steps, but it's worth it. Worth the long haul.
Absolutely.
Can you share some of your best and worst pro-life stories?
So obviously I shared about the pregnancy resource resolution, so I won't touch on that again. But last fall, after I got the 20,000 death threats, I was getting so much attention, and like I had gotten a lot of news publicity that I was like, hey, all eyes are on the abortion issue right now. What if we do an abortion debate? And so it took us forever to find a pro-choicer that was willing to debate me. But we did, and there were hundreds of people at the debate, almost completely pro-choice. There were hundreds of people on the live stream. And obviously I'm like, and I didn't even know the pro-choicer I was going up against. And I'm going to be so rough. I feel kind of bad for her because she did not.
She's not ready.
Poor girl. But I'm going to be so real. Not to pat myself, but I demolished her completely. Like, people in the audience were like, oh my gosh, did she just say that?
Did you title the video Destroy Lydia?
I was nice. She was actually one of the nicer pro-choicers I've encountered. But afterwards, it was a majority pro-choice audience. 70% of them said I had won the debate, and it was like, oh my gosh, like wow, this is actually doing something. It was incredible. So that was like one of my favorite moments. That I'm like, wow, like we're actually having an impact, like debating pro-choicers. Wow, who knew? Worst one. So, this is really, this is worst. Like, you might not want to hear this. So, I was
we do, bring it.
Then, I think it was right after the Dobbs decision leaked. So, when the Supreme Court, the draft got leaked and everyone found out that Roe was going to be reversed, obviously the pro-aborts were going bonkers crazy. And so, they held a big pro-abortion protest in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, of course, I had to pull up. So, I brought a bunch of other pro-lifers, and we led a counter. They were not they were very angry, and so they ended up kicking dog poop at me.
Oh my gosh.
And I was and it was also pouring rain, so I was already disgusting. And then they shoved me into a pole, and my side had like a gash in it, and it got like it was disgusting. It was the worst.
That's
Wow. Okay, yeah,
Did you at
that's
least get
pretty
them like
bad.
arrested?
No, that's the
Oh
thing.
my
Like
gosh.
the
Of
police
course
don't
not.
care. The
Of
police
course
don't care.
not.
No, I've been like this is sorry not to go like on the negative train, but I was even like assaulted in the bathroom. I had a pro choicer that I still don't know if it was a guy or girl, follow me into the bathroom and like shove me against a wall, and I wasn't like super injured. I had like minor bruising on my shoulder, and, like called me a pro-life B word, and then like ran out, and like there were no cameras obviously, so couldn't catch them. But I was like, what the heck, like
That's scary.
like people are crazy. But yeah, those are my worst encounters. I think I haven't. It's been a while since I had something like really bad. I mean, I got spat on like a few months ago.
Oh my gosh.
By someone, but that's typical. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you just get used to it after a while.
Oh
You're
my
like,
gosh.
I've had coworkers that have had like pee thrown on them. I'm like, if you're
Wow.
not a real pro-life
Yeah,
activist
like-
until you
Yeah, literally.
until you go there, and
Oh my
it's
gosh.
disgusting. But yeah, that's probably my worst. Yeah, that's my worst
Yeah.
one. I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you were
That's
saying
not
before. I
good.
mean, like if you know you're on the right side when the other side has to
Yeah.
resort to
Yeah.
violence
Yeah.
every time. You know.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Take it with take it as a bad
crazy.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
literally.
But hopefully they don't happen again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That
Why
was
not?
I know,
the end of it.
I'm going to the Women's March in DC on
Oh.
June 24th.
Okay.
I might be undercover, so it might be okay, but I'm going to get my cover blown eventually. I can't help it.
Oh.
And I'm going with Tommy, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it's going to be two of us against like thousands. And I'm like,
Oh my
who
gosh.
knows what'll
Yeah.
happen.
Wow.
But
At least have a guy there, just in case.
yeah, that's true.
true.
But yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
You never know. You might
Yeah.
see me on the news again.
Yeah.
Why not? Stay tuned for our next episode.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Well, that kind of leads into because we can definitely be praying for that. But is there anything else that we can pray for you?
I think a big like just general pro-life movement prayer is just how like obviously we had a great victory with Roe Universe and we had this huge momentum, and now obviously we're like losing a lot of like ballot initiatives and
Yeah,
stuff. And there's
right.
been a lot of
Right.
discouragement, and I think it's been difficult for us to try to get that motivation up. So I think just praying for like the motivation of the pro-life movement and just courage to keep fighting in the face of disappointment and
Yeah.
losses sometimes, because unfortunately we're not always going to win. And so I think just prayers that we can keep our head held high despite it, and just keep trusting God that He's going to
Yeah.
work through it, I think is a huge thing. And obviously for the elections is a huge prayer thing. But for me personally, I mean, I love my job. I'll be going full time with it in December and moving to Virginia. So you can always pray for me that I don't get it definitely it's not bad here. Like here, no
Yeah.
one recognizes me, but when I'm in North Carolina, I can't walk in the city alone anymore.
Really?
That's how bad it is.
Really?
Like people are like,
Yeah, they know.
yeah. It doesn't
yeah.
help that I have like pro-life stickers all over my car. That really does not
Yeah.
help. My car's been vandalized more times than I can count.
gosh.
There's that. So yeah, pray for
Yeah.
Oh,
pray
man.
for safety. But yeah, just I think in general, just the pro-life movement needing some more motivation and courage to keep fighting. And
Yeah.
the face of backlash, even me sometimes it gets exhausting reading all the threats every day waking up. And
Yeah.
I
like,
can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
some days
for
I'm
sure.
like, oh my gosh, it's just it's a lot. But yeah, I think that's it.
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you
Why
so
not?
much for coming on our
This was great.
podcast, and we will definitely be praying for you and
you.
everything that you're doing and the pro-life movement. And and that's going to be, we're going to wrap up the podcast, but everyone remember to vote no on Amendment 4 in November. We're going to keep saying that every single time. So, but yeah, I want to thank Lydia so much for coming on, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day.